right, welcome back to the Coach and the Cowboy show. So we have something special for you today. Kind of like a Christmas unwrap your gift. One that a lot of people don't like to talk about, but this is what our show is going to be about. Just kind of talking about being possibly alone on the holidays or co-parenting, vice versa. Before we get into that topic, Reggie, what's coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, we've got a lot of really great things. Like like Josh and I have been talking about. Hey, we've got a seminar coming up. We got a seminar coming up. Details to come. Well, listen, you've asked for them. We've got them, and we're so excited. And the name of the seminar is going to be Ember to Flame, Igniting Your Best Year Yet. Now, this is going to be happening on January 29th in the evening. It's going to be an online seminar. So, we're going to record it. So, you can see it, from the convenience of your home, on your phone, whatever it may be. We're going to open up the registration first week of January. Now, the big question that you've got with this is, what the heck is this seminar going to be about? Like, are we just going to be talking for 2 hours and jick-jacking around about, football and everything else that's going on? Well, maybe. And if we were, you should tune into that anyway, because it's fun talk, right? But no, what we're going to be talking about is we truly want you to have your best year yet. And we're going to be dealing with topics like how to deal with your past and moving forward, and how do you find your passion in life and your purpose in life, right? And even a goal setting, how, putting together a game plan, a roadmap, if you will, so you can get from where you are right now, whatever that may be, to where you want to be. Now, we're going to bring in some speakers with this, and we're super excited to hear what they've got to say. Josh and I are going to be part of it. And here's a really cool part. So each speaker is going to have their own little spot, their own little section, right? And then we're going to have a round table. Obviously, you can ask questions throughout the thing, but it's a way that you can truly take yourself and really have a tangible way to move yourself forward, right? So many things promise this in the new year and everything, but it doesn't really have, doesn't really have the tangible, how do I get from here to there? How do I get past all the BS that I've dealt with in the past? And how do I move forward? So we're really excited about that. Our website's up. If you haven't checked that out, go check out coachcowboyshow.com, coachcowboyshow.com. And also, again, we plug it every time, is Patreon. Just search Coach Cowboy Show on Patreon. We've got a behind the scenes. Last week is a great example. Our podcast was probably 40 minutes last week with Jason Tracy. We went for another at least 45 minutes on the Patreon. So great episode we had with Jason Tracy. And if you didn't check it out, here's a quick little promo. He is the founder of Roar Consulting. He also has a podcast with over 200 episodes called Coffee and Grit. And what he does the main topic is dealing with imposter syndrome. Basically, where does it start? How do I deal with it? How do I overcome with it? And, the power of vulnerability in your own life. How do you set boundaries, and how you can align all those values together? Now, obviously, there's a lot of, Jason's a sales consultant, sales coach. So it's a lot of practical, how do I do this talk, along with a lot of heart. And Jason, he's so passionate every time he talks, and I love talking with him. He's a good buddy, and I was so excited to have him on the show. And I know the topic today is going to be a good one. It's something that I deal with. Josh, is probably something you deal with too. Is being away from your kids, or maybe you're alone, or maybe you're away from your kids, or maybe you're just in a really bad spot and you don't have anywhere to go. How do you deal with being alone during the holidays?
Yeah, that's the gift that nobody wants to unwrap under that tree, that no one, wants to talk about. But like you said, either it could be from us just being alone by yourself, or co-parenting or split custody. It's a big conversation we'll dive in here in a second. But like you said, that's just one of a few things that we'll talk about that I feel like for our holiday chat, I think needs to be out there for people that are probably going through this right now.
100%.
But the one thing I wanted to mention before we jump into off topic is with Jason, is his t-shirt was pretty rocking, I have to say, for the grit, for the coffee. I have to say, this t-shirt with the lion with it on there, I thought it was pretty legit.
Yeah, his company Roar Consulting, so that's his logo, and the motto "Eat Faces," and there's another little motto that he's got, and I don't have it right in front of me, so forgive me for that. But yeah, it is, that lion head is super cool, and this time of the year, obviously, real quick before we dive into this, and Josh, I think you wanted to touch base on this too. One thing that was not really cool that happened this weekend, that we were super excited for, finally a 12-team playoff. We could see kind of where everything's at. We can have all these teams in here, and we can have a better brand of college football, because kind of what's the problem that's crept in on college football is, if you're not in the top four, playing for a national championship or in the national championship game, a lot of those bowl games really lost a lot of its luster, right? You had people sitting out, you had people just opting out, whatever it may be, for different reasons, whether they are transferring or whether they don't want to get hurt for the NFL draft. And I get it. Like, I get where they're coming from. So this year we've got a 12-team playoff. We're so excited. We get to see home playoff games in college. The atmosphere is going to be electric. It's going to be awesome. You have a Friday night game in South Bend. Then you're got a power packed, games on Saturday, all day Saturday. It's going to be incredible. And then Friday came, and it was a letdown because it wasn't even really close. And then Saturday came, and it was a letdown because really none of them were close. Now, your Ohio State Buckeyes, they probably had the closest margin of victory of 10 points, 27-17, right? But to me, that wasn't even close. No,
that's wrong.
What was it?
That's wrong. 42-17.
I'm sorry.
That was the Indiana
the Indiana Notre Dame game. Excuse me. Yep. But I don't even feel like Indiana was in that game. I don't even think Indiana was close.
No,
to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So the whole weekend was.
Yeah, a whole weekend. But it was cool. It was kind of a letdown. But like you said, Friday was Notre Dame, Indiana, interstate rivalry. Haven't played since, I don't even know, probably when Reggie was born. But yeah, you're right. Pretty much Indiana couldn't stop the run, and Notre Dame just ran it down their throats. And Sig had all the chat before the game, but didn't do much during the game. And then we had finally a whiteout, but they did it at noon at Penn State. I mean, the atmosphere, I'm sure, was pretty cool. But then SMU threw 2 6-pickses back to back, and that was the game. And then the only other game that was Clemson kind of came back, but Texas just ran all over him too. And then the Ohio State game, Ohio State came out and just punched him right in the mouth, 21-0. You're like, okay, on to the next round.
Yeah. And, Tennessee fought back a little bit, but I mean, at that point, Chip Kelly, the offensive coordinator for Ohio State, actually figured out they have, in the year 2024, you can actually throw a forward pass and you don't have to sit there and rely on the run. Like, unbelievable that you have 1 week where they go up against Michigan and they get beat and they played like they did. And then they come out. It's just a totally different team. I mean, by far, Ohio State had the most impressive win, or looked the most impressive, I should say, in their game. So if Ohio State plays like that, there is nobody that is going to even compete with them. They're $20 million or $30 million or whatever they paid for this, the New York Yankees style, for this championship. I just hope they have enough money in the budget, for Ryan Day's beard, because I don't know, it was insane, but I don't know. The college football, the playoff was disappointing. I don't. What's what are the matchups? Do you know the matchups coming up? I meant to pull them up here on the screen.
So it's
who we got?
Arizona State, Penn State.
Ugh.
I mean, Arizona State, Texas, Penn State, Boise, Notre Dame, Georgia. Which, by the way, Georgia doesn't have their starting QB, so that should be interesting. And then it's the revenge game, Ohio State against Oregon.
Which is kind of unfortunate. You got two Big Ten teams and that have already played, playing in this round.
It's because it's the first year of it. They need to stop the stupid buys and just seed the teams and go from there. Then we'll walk into a weird situation like this, like Arizona State ranked, 11th and gets a bye over some of the bigger, like over Texas. Come on now.
Oh, you're saying the odd, so the conference winners, because you said do away with the buys. You're saying the conference winners get a bye.
Yeah. Okay. Just seed it. Just seed how you finish in the top 25 and just seed them that way. And if you're in the top 4, even if you didn't win your conference, you still get a bye. But you can't punish somebody for going and losing if they're still ranked high,
Yeah, I guess my question would be, would the matchups be that much different? Because in that scenario, your top 4 are getting a bye, right? And then your bottom 8, so it'd be number 5 would play 12, so on and so forth.
It might look a little different, but I think it stop like some of the easy pass people say some of the teams have to get to the championship. Like Oregon's has the toughest, even though they got one. They got to play the Buckeyes. If they beat them, then it's either Texas or Arizona State before they even get to the championship game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and some of it's just, the way it falls. I mean, Texas is going to roll over Arizona State. I mean, right?
They should, but.
I mean, I know you got to play the game. That's why we play the game and everything. But odds makers, I don't know what the line is. Not a betting guy. Penn State's got to be favored over Boise, right?
They're probably. Who knows?
I would think so.
See. I can tell you in like 2 seconds.
Notre Dame, Georgia. Georgia's got to be favored with something like that. It's just I lean experience. Oregon, Ohio State is the game, though. That's the one that the marquee matchup, in my opinion. That's probably going to be played. Because those games are played New Year's Eve and then New Year's Day.
There's the only one is on the 31st is Penn State, Boise State. Penn State's favored by 10.5.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And then Ohio State's favored by 2. Texas is favored by 14. And Georgia is favored by 1.5.
Okay. So it's pretty much a pick 'em game there. Texas and Penn are going to roll. And then Oregon, Ohio State is kind of a coin flip.
But we need to talk about the big game, though. The Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl. Pinstripe Bowl. It's set on the 12:20 at noon on ABC prime time. We got Nebraska favored by 3.5 to Boston College.
I'm just saying, man. The Fighting Fluties versus the Dylan Raiolas. Let's see what we got, boys. Let's see what we got.
I'm just saying. And your boy, I see your boy Prime's got a primetime game.
Yeah.
They're favored by 4. They're favored by 4, by the way.
Yeah. He's still on X fussing about how, should have got this and blah, blah, blah. But for some reason, not the best wide receiver, not the best cover corner, not the best anything won the Heisman. So I think we need to stop fussing there, Prime. Nice hat. Respect the cowboy hat. Hats off to you, brother. But pretty sure you stole that from Ashton Genty, who had one of the best years ever. And for some reason, Travis Hunter's the best receiver in the nation. How is that even possible? Other dude had crazy, I forget his name. My son knows it. I don't know it, but he didn't
it's San Jose State. I can't think of his name right now.
Yeah, he didn't have as many receptions, didn't have as many yards, didn't have as many touchdowns, but for some reason, he's not the best receiver. Sounds like a EA Sports glitch in the matrix in the system. I don't know, but yeah, hey, it's college football. It's where it's at. NFL football is starting to get really interesting too. We really don't talk a lot of professional. One thing I will say is there are the Chiefs becoming the Dallas Cowboys of the 90s where everybody just hates them? Like, it is disgusting. And I know people are Chiefs. I'm originally from Iowa, so essentially you're either a Chiefs fan, you're a Bears fan if you grew up on the east side, you're a Minnesota fan if you are northern Iowa, and essentially everybody else is pretty much a Chiefs fan. I guess you could be a St. Louis fan back in the day if you were kind of southeast Iowa. But anyways, they're just like, they're so annoying to me, and the calls that they get and all the things, it's just like, this is unwatchable. It was unbelievable. The Chiefs are getting calls left and right. I watched like 5, maybe 10 minutes of that game. And I was like, I can't watch this anymore. It's I don't know. It's frustrating to me. It is absolutely frustrating.
You sound pretty frustrated.
Ugh, disgusting. I just want the Lions to win. I just want the Lions to do well. I just want them to do well.
I do too. All right, so let's jump into the gift that nobody wants to unwrap. Not the white elephant gift, but the gift. Yeah, before we go too far down this rabbit hole and never come back out. But yeah, let's start. So let me ask you a question, Reggie. Let's just throw this one out here too.
Here we go. Confession.
So, you co-parenting. So how do you handle over the holidays? Like, what advice would you give others in the same situation? How do you handle co-parenting over the holidays, especially like around, because Christmas time and stuff?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, in preparation of this show, I think the biggest thing is communication, right? Not only do you need to communicate well with your spouse or with your ex-spouse or your, kids, parent or your spouse or whatever, right? There's probably people dealing with a lot of weird situations right now, step situations and divorce situations, and how do you, all of the things. And we'll touch base on a lot of different situations, but I think the biggest thing for me is just communicating and having, play the long game here. Like, this time of the year is easy to go petty, right? And we'll get into it a little bit too about comparing and how do you deal with, one parent that's, the over gifter and giving them everything and giving them this, and maybe you don't have that. And how do you deal with that? Because that's a real thing. But I think, to answer your question specifically, what are some best practices around that? I think it's just communication and having realistic, expectations, and realize that this holiday season isn't necessarily all about you, right? It's about the kid. And, I think if you can communicate well, even if you guys are oil and water and there's a reason you're not together anymore, the mom of the kids or whatever, I still think you need to communicate well with a respectful tone, because ultimately how you act around someone, how you communicate to them, a lot of times is going to be a reflection on how they communicate back to you. And try to do this in advance, right? I know when we're shooting this right before Christmas and everything like that, but having a game plan in advance is always better than not day of, but like week of or 2 days before request or whatever, right? So if you can plan ahead and be respectful and communicate that, I think that goes a long ways in regards to, dealing with kids and, separations or whatever it may be during this time of the year. I mean, what what advice would you have for?
No, I 100% agree with you. Communication is big. But for me, how mine started off, I was like, I felt like I was in the foxhole, like all the time, like poking my head out, like, oh shoot, should have done that. But honestly, like you said, it's in for the long haul. In the beginning, it might be rough, and they're gonna stick by what their paper says. Got to be here by 1:00 sharp at this gas station, or whatever it is. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But then eventually, after you guys get over, over fighting and being like, okay, the kid's more important than us just being, going at each other all the time, or who's going to dig who. Then eventually you guys just figure it out and it moves smooth. But like you said in the beginning, if you're in the time right now in the foxhole and it's rough, communication is important. You be the bigger person, communicate, figure things out. Don't do last minute. Even if it happens to you, just roll with the punches. And I tell you, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. For me and my situation now is we're easy go. We're like, hey, do you mind if we do this? Can we switch this? So like, sure. And for Christmas time, with my daughter being in sports, she only gets 1 day off. So I'm like, instead of you driving to see me or me picking up, sometimes I'm like, hey, we'll celebrate it on like the next weekend, so you don't have to worry about just coming down for an hour and driving back. But I just want those fathers to know, even if there's moms out there that have it the opposite way, that it's going to be rough, but just like you said, communication, and just when you get them, just make it the best you can, and don't worry about that until the next day. If you're upset, just don't show them until they're gone. Basically, that's the best I can say. Like, communication is important, but doesn't mean it's going to last forever. The first couple years of it, I'm sure, are rough, and I'm sure me and you can both talk about that for hours. But that's not, that's just.
And I think the important thing with all of that is, realizing, and we're talking to a broad spectrum, right? This is kind of an open, like, dealing with Christmas and the holidays with a 4-year-old is different than a 16-year-old, right? But I still think it's important, and I've tried to do this with my own kids too, is you need to tell them that it's important to you, right? Like, I think it's important for the kids to know that you are communicating with them as well. So not only am I going to talk to my, to the kid's mother about, hey, this is what I've got planned, but also that the kids know, hey, this is what I'm asking. And it's important to me that you guys come over on Christmas, or that we do this holiday thing, or that we go to grandma and grandpa's, or we go to a family function, or whatever it may be. Right. And, I think that is definitely a big thing, is to know that not only, like we said, you got to communicate with the other parent, but you also have to communicate with your kids so they know it's important. Because at some point they're going to have an opinion too, and they can, also say, if the other side isn't exactly cooperating and they're just saying, no, you're not going to your dad's, or no, you're not doing this, then the child can also say, hey, it's important to me that I go over there, right? Because they know it's important to you. And then the child will also, obviously it's going to be important if you got a good relationship with your child. But I think a lot of people, depending on the age of the child and stuff, we put way too much pressure on Christmas. We put way too much pressure on, all of these things. And it can be just way too much. And I think playing the long game, going with the flow a little bit. I think there's a difference between going with the flow and being a pushover. But I would say going with the flow, but having boundaries, right? Because we're not just going to say yes, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and just totally forget what we want. But we could also go with the flow, but also say, hey, but this is important to me. Like I want to have the kids around, and the kids need to see me too. And they need to see my side of, the aunts and the uncles and the cousins and whatever. Yeah, it's crazy and they're wild and whatever. But having those conversations with the child to let them know, hey, this is important. I think is a big one.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking like it's important for them to have some of that, how it used to be. Just not, like mom or dad might not be there because whoever how it's split, but it's important to still have those, with your side and a few other people, just to keep some of that, still the same. So it's something they're used to. And, that's just
absolutely. I mean, because let's be real here. I mean, loneliness during the holidays is a real thing. I mean, it does not take, you do not need a PhD in research study to figure out that the holidays bring out the best and the worst in people, right? You're going to go through, if you haven't experienced a Christmas or a New Year's or this holiday time frame without your kids, without, let's say you're divorced, let's say, you don't have your spouse around or whatever it may be, you're separated and you're by yourself, you are going to go through a roller coaster of emotions if you have not experienced that before. I mean, it's just going to happen. So I guess, and like I said, I could read you off studies right here on, people dealing with depression during this time and how it's increased exponentially during this time. And over, 50% of all Americans experience the loneliness, and, 67%, experience stress and are anxious about it. 64% say their mental health illnesses are higher or heightened during this time. And 22% are dealing with substance abuse, whether it's alcohol or drugs or, other substances too. And, dealing with all that. So I guess, Josh, my question to you is, how do you deal with the loneliness that people can have during this time?
For me, I kind of always try to take it one day at a time.
Yeah.
But I also try to make it more like self-reflection and growth if I had time. Yeah. Like when I was single parent, and not if I didn't have my kid over the holidays, but just like, how it worked out, you get them every other weekend or whatever your schedule is.
Yep.
I tried to put growth into me. So I was always at the gym. That was my get away from everything, put headphones on, I'm good to go. And then I could refocus. And then when I got, my daughter, then everything goes into her. But it's hard when you see, like, the first couple of times when you're walking just to do an errand, you see couples with kids and you're like, where did I fail? Like, oh man, I'm like, it's hard to see that, or you're out to eat by yourself and you're like seeing a table and you're like, man, but you just have to like work on it. It's not easy. I can't give you the like wave the magic wand and poof, it goes away. But it's a lot of self-reflecting, and you just need to grow, like help yourself. Either like, I mean, we've talked about this before on our show that, we both go to church, find a community there as well. Find a community of people, guys, other, at your kids' games or whatever. And I did a lot of praying, soul searching, working out was a big thing for me. And just realizing that it's not the end. This happens. You're part of that statistic you didn't want to be, but it's just part of life. And eventually it'll get better. It's just when you're in the beginning of it, yeah, it's like World War III and it's terrible, but
yeah,
it's just, just one day I promise you'll wake up and it'll click and everything will fall into motion, and you'll forget about those terrible, like, first couple of years of just you staring at your wall until you get your child or until you meet someone or something,
Yeah.
The best part is, like people say, I'm going to say for people trying to find someone to date is it's when you're not looking is when it happens. When you're putting so much pressure.
That's the dumbest advice ever, bro. Come on.
No, but no, I'm being serious. Like if you put so much pressure on yourself to find someone to be happy, that's the problem. That's what I'm just saying. That's extra pressure you don't need.
I get it, man. I get it. I'm joking. It's not the dumbest thing. It's true, but it's the worst thing to ever hear when you're in that situation. Stop looking. Yeah, stop breathing. I'm looking for air, bro. Come on. How am I supposed to stop breathing? I'm starving right now. You have a pizza right in front of me. I'm gonna, stare at it.
I don't know if I answered your question, but I feel like
you did. You did. And I think there's when I'm looking at it and what I've gone through, one of the big things is that self-talk, right? And I think we just need to reframe how you are talking to yourself, because like you just said, an example, you go to the grocery store, you go out to eat or whatever, and somebody comes in and they got their family and they're laughing and joking. And you're like, dude, I'm a freaking loser. Like, what happened to me? And, this guy's good, that guy's good, this guy's married, my brother does this, my sister's that, and blah, blah, blah. What's wrong with me? Getting out of that mindset of what's wrong with me, I think is a huge, huge part of this. And stop comparing yourself to other people. Like you don't know their journey. All you're doing, you're seeing the snippet, or on Facebook, you're seeing a picture that they smile, and then 3 seconds later, the picture's over, and they're like, "Damn it, Janice, why do you do this every time?" Blah blah blah. And she's like, "Frank, well, you're so dumb." You know what I mean? And they're going at each other. You don't see that. That's what Facebook doesn't show you. That's what TikTok doesn't show you. And that's the problem. Is you need to limit your time on your phone. Like, put every phone. I don't know. I assume on every phone. I know you can on iPhone. You could limit the amount of time that you have on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, and things like that. The worst thing you could do is sit there and doom scroll for 3 hours because you don't have your kids and you're depressed and you're sitting on your couch. That's the worst thing. I mean, there's probably worse things you do, coke and drinking and things like that, and
but 100%
wrong side of town. But that's that's a Patreon edition. Check out.
Sounds like what you do in Iowa or something.
But just limit the time you have on your phone. Okay. Another thing is start looking in, and a lot of people do this time of the year. And Josh, you alluded to it too. You started to pour into yourself, right? I need to take my mind off this. I need a healthy stress reliever. I need a healthy way of filling my time. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to go join some type of a club or a group of like-minded individuals that I can be around to help grow myself, right?
Yeah.
Start being reflective on what your goals are and where you want to go.
Exactly. I mean, I worked out I was going to say, I worked out every day, even if it wasn't a full thing. I did an hour here, and then I did my full thing. But even afterwards, it's crazy when you go and you keep going. Eventually somebody's like, "Hey, you want to work out together?" And I had somebody to work out with, and it turned into just some conversations about whatever that made the rest of my day great. Like you said, getting in a group or meeting people. But
exactly,
the first step is the hardest. Yes, but because find your own. Yeah.
So just think about this. You got two representations, right? You got one person, both of them don't have their kids. Let's say they're all alone, right? They're all alone during the holidays. And one person, has these thought processes of I'm a loser and this and that. They're not motivated. They're probably eating like crap. They're not exercising. They're not moving. Their self-talk is horrible. And what happens in our brains during that time? We start to spiral down, and we're putting this out in the atmosphere. We're putting this out in the world, and more of that comes in because our brain is trying to find reasons to make ourselves right. And that's going to pile on you're right. You are a piece of crap. Yeah. And now you feel like crap, and you don't sleep well because you're eating like crap, and you're, just watching TV and doom scrolling all day, as opposed to the other side, which is, hey, I'm going to work out. And when you work out, try to go work out and have a good workout or go for a run, and then just sit around and eat ho-hos all day, right? like when you start to get in a routine, and then you, like you said, you meet someone at the gym and you start working out together, and now you've got an accountability partner, and you have all these wins going, and you start listening to a positive podcast that's going to put you in the right frame of mind. You start reading and a good book, and you start meditating, and maybe you get plugged into a local church or, you know, some type of organization that can take you from your mindset, the small limited beliefs that you have right now, start expanding them to say, hey, you were born for more than this. This isn't your lot in life if you choose not, you know, if you don't want it to be. So I think, you know, there's so many things, these self-care tips, and you can run on Google and do a ton of research on that.
I want to say one thing, like we're going to like
say
bring the train back to the station for a second, but about the communication thing, I was thinking about this. Like, if you can be the person that like sets it up, and if they deny it, whatever, just figure it out. But the thing is, what I realized is, in the end, your kid, no matter what, will see how you treat the other parent.
Yep.
And in the end, we'll eventually realize what's really happening in the situation. And so all those negative thoughts, you're like, well, shoot, my daughter thinks I'm a piece of, you know, whatever. But they'll realize just all the interactions and eventually how you react. They'll put two and two together and be like, okay, so really when mom or dad says the other person's a, you know, whatever, that's not true. I can see what they're doing and what they're trying to do. I just thought of that. I just wanted to put that out there just so.
And that's, and I love that. And here's, and this is where I measure everything against, right? Like, where is your heart when you know, in that situation, right? And Josh, you're not saying that as in the kid's going to see that the mom really rides a broom and flies around and, you know, sleeps upside down from the rafters because she may be a vampire. That's not coming from that heart at all. Like, what you're trying to do is say, hey, little Johnny, little Susie, whatever, like, I'm trying my best to make this a good situation for you. Right. And here's a key that I think a lot of people don't realize is that our children are always seeing us. Right. And one of the best ways, one of the wisest ways to learn is from other people. And there are examples, whether we want to admit them or not, there are examples every time around us. Every interaction we have is an example for our children, coworkers, or whoever it may be. And we're always learning. Sometimes there are good lessons to learn, which we try to emulate, we try to do. And sometimes there's bad lessons to learn. And your child is going to look at it from the lens of, man, I really like this about dad, or I really like this about mom. I'm going to try to do that in my life. And then there's going to be the opposite of it of, man, I don't like that at all. I'm not doing that. And that's why sometimes, you know, you've got kids with alcoholic parents or substance abuse or whatever. And they're like, I don't drink at all because my dad did this or my mom did that or whatever, my aunt, uncle, and it totally wrecked the whole situation. And it totally, and they're not going to, so they saw an example of what not to do, and now they are vehemently against it. So I think, you know, that example of, you know, exactly what you're talking about is absolutely huge. How do you deal with this? Is something I've, you know, kind of, it's not on my notes or anything. We just, you know, been talking about it here. Obviously, in a split situation where you've got two households, right? And listen, I'll be honest, if you're a kid, you got to love having two separate Christmases and everything else, right? Because you're like double the presents, right? So, but
wait, before we go, I want to say real quick, because the way you said double the presents, so Brooklyn's mom's family party is insane. Like, I miss it so much. It is like elves on steroids, bro.
Oh,
you can't even see the trees. So like the trees covered almost all. It's like nuts, and they always do tacos, but it's so fun because her mom just enjoys when the kids are laughing and having a good time. Like, it's that much fun. Like now I can just say, hey, can I get an invite again? But but it's just fun to see like she has 18 grandkids, so it's just fun to see them like go nuts and just experience like
that is cool.
And then of course the next day that's my house and you're like, oh well, I can't amp that up, but hey, you got presents under the tree.
exactly
But,
so I guess I know we're kind of joking about it right now, but I mean, I'm telling you right now, this is a real thing. Let's say you've got a situation where one parent does go all out, and if they have the means, if they don't have the means, whatever, that's on them, not you. But let's say you've got one parent that goes all out, and then you're the parent that maybe is a little bit more reserved, or you're not as extravagant, or you don't have the means to like compare, hey, they're taking them to this, popular vacation. Just, oh my gosh, they're, not only did you guys have all these presents, from your mom and everything, but then you're going to, the Bahamas and everything else. And here you are like looking at it saying, oh, okay, cool. Well, here's a new hoodie and, everything else. So how do you deal with that?
Well, I feel like you must have looked at my notes because you just stole one of my Patreon
I did?
questions. But yeah, you did. So we'll cross that one off, but I will chat about this.
Well, no, hey, and we that could be a teaser because we're right at time for this. Right. I think that's going to be a great teaser. Hey, an unintentional cliffhanger. So go to Patreon, go check us out. Search up Coach Cowboy Show. I think it's like $5 a month. And it allows us to not only have good content like this, but also bring guests on, have seminars like the one we've got, Ember to Flame, coming up January 29th. Registration, be on the lookout for that. It's going to be happening first week in January. You want to deal with your past and moving forward from different failures. How do you find that passion in your life, finding that purpose? And then ultimately, how do we put everything together? How do we get from point A to point B? We're going to be going through all that. There's no charge to this thing either. Okay. We're doing this free of charge. So by you subscribing to things like Patreon, and we're going to have some merch coming up too, and all these things, that helps us put these events on to help you. Because that's where my heart is. That's where Josh's heart is. That's where this whole community is. We want to support you. We want to be there for you. So go check out Patreon, Coach Cowboy Show.
Yeah. I mean, a little teaser there. We're ready to go here in a minute. But thank you.
That was a good one.
That's a good one. Thanks again for the listeners out there for riding along with the Coach and the Cowboy. Until next time, saddle up and keep chasing those dreams.